Hello, I'm back, and we are busy doing material design, and it is going famously thanks to the help of chat. So, where did we leave off? I had just started talking about, so earlier we arranged stuff a little bit, and then I started talking about what material design was, and started by implementing a custom font for that. So, there are a lot of things to consider with material design, and it could be a whole series of its own, to be honest. There's a lot of detail to material design, and how fonts and colors and white space and layouts and all of this stuff works. But I'm not going to do all of that stuff because actually right now I don't know all of this stuff. There are some really good guidelines for how things look. So generally how this works is that there is a base element. Okay, it's not such a good example here. In fact, let's have a look at, let's go to something like components or layout. Maybe layout. Structure. Does that work? Okay, so a lot of this is in the context of mobile application design. And that may not necessarily be what we're interested in right now, because I'm not making a mobile application that I'm aware of. But there are other things like desktop structure, and some of the Google apps actually work like this. They actually remind me of this kind of structure, which is interesting, because I hadn't seen the underlying structure of it until I looked at this and read a lot of the concepts that are in here, and in how the icons are designed and how colors are picked. Which kind of reminds me, we actually need to pick a palette. This is another really cool thing. So style, color. There's this concept of color palettes that you use, and a very specific way of how you pick what those colors are. So essentially, I mean, I'm going to download these color swatches, even though I'm probably not going to use them right now. Essentially, you pick one of these main colors. The main colors being these 500 shades here. So bright red, bright pink, purple, deep blue, indigo. I kind of like the indigo color as a main color. But the idea is you pick one of these. Maybe I'll pick gray actually, because I like that one as well. You pick one of these as a primary palette. Like if I picked gray as a primary palette, most of the colors in the apps would be shades of this gray. Or if I picked indigo, most of the shades in the app would be of this palette. And then you pick a secondary color, something that contrasts nicely with this, something that's not too bright with it. And the way that you pick these, there's quite a detailed description of how you should pick them, and how to work out what that contrast is, or at least deal with low contrast values. But you don't need to pick necessarily things, you don't need to pick main colors that contrast with each other. You can pick main colors that complement your brand. So for instance, if I was doing something silver stripy, maybe this blue, maybe indigo, or maybe this blue. In fact, this blue is probably a better one. That would be could be a main color, and then we pick something else, like maybe the pink as an accent color. And the examples follow this pattern quite closely, actually. But the way that I'll do it is I'll pick this blue as a primary color and the pink as an accent color. So you pick 3 main colors from this palette. You probably want to pick the brightest blue as one of the main colors, and then maybe 1 or 2 of the others. So I'll say like 200 and 100 and 300, maybe 100 and 300, just for like a little grading. And you use these colors throughout your application. And then your offset color, you just pick 1 shade as the highlight. So if the main 500 shade is not contrasting enough, you try and pick one of the others that is contrasting enough from your primary palette. In this case, I think the pink does contrast enough with the blue, which is fine. So I would pick the main blue, 2 other shades of that, and then probably the main pink in this palette. Okay. And then the way that you use these is predominantly you use colors from your primary palette to accentuate stuff. So not for body text, because body text should be black or white on a darker background. But you do something like, okay, the main body text, I'll do a light background and black for the body text, and for feature areas, I'll use this bright blue. And for accents within that feature area, I'll use the bright pink. That's cool. Also for things like call out buttons, like for instance, if you look at our interface here, or raised buttons, like this would be one, and this would be, the background of this would be our accent color. Same with these buttons here, same with this delete button here, which I think is actually not supposed to be on the next line, but anyway. These buttons would be the accent color as background, and then a contrasting alternate shade for the text. So presumably pink background, white text on there. That kind of seems like it would work well. So let's actually do that. Let's see if we can style these buttons nicely. Say something like, and I'm going to do a global style here because I'm not fussed at the moment about namespace collisions or anything, or at least the CSS version of namespace collisions. So button background, and then whatever this pink hue is. In fact, I will take this hex value and I'll just comment it here, put some guidelines here. So accent is this, primary is this, and then I'll do these shades in descending order. Primary 2 and primary 3. Let's do that. Okay, so we've got our main three colors that we have most of from our primary palette, and we've got our accent color that we'll use to highlight stuff, like buttons and call-out actions and that kind of thing. Okay. And because I'm such a stickler for code style, I'll just do that so it's aligned. Okay, so the background for these buttons, we're going to use our accent color. So we'll just do that. We'll turn border off. Border radius, I'm not sure what the guidelines are for this, but it appears very low. So I'll use something like 1 pixel. Let's have a look what that looks like. Oh, I also forgot that the color, I'll make this a little bit bigger, and the color should be white. Here's my OCD. Okay. Now, the way that there's a lot to material design. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff. Oh, by the way, these buttons, according to the typography, they should also be. Let me go find this quickly, just so you know I'm not talking nonsense. Oh, this is loading so slowly. What's going on? Okay, so styles. There's some. Okay, so button is medium, but where's the font size? Okay, so button medium, all caps 14. Now I'm not sure. Let me just do a thing quickly. Font size SP2px, or yeah, font size SP2px. I think SP is a relative unit of measurement. And the first I heard of it was in looking at material design. So SP scale independent pixels. So I probably want to do something like probably want to do something in this range. So 160 dpi. Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to use relative font sizes for this because I really couldn't be bothered. But let's take a baseline of this. Let's take a baseline. Say the regular body is 14. So if we give a consistent font size for this, we say something like body font size is 16 pixels as a baseline. Okay, we say 16 pixels as a baseline. If we use body to begin with, and everything else is a percentage difference of this, then we just have to change body to a relative font size and everything else will adjust accordingly. So I think that works for us. It's just using percentages are sometimes trickier because if you have nested elements, percentage is a percentage of that. So maybe that's not what you want to do. But anyway, button is the same font size as the regular body, so I don't need to do anything with that. All I can say is font size 100%. Okay, so it will be 16 pixels, it'll be the same as the normal body size, and if this changes to a relative font size, the buttons will adjust as well. Presuming they're not within something else that nests font size, that modifies and nests it. In fact, maybe what we even want to do is just say, let's just have this as pixels of whatever those SPs are. Maybe we can just like do a find and replace of pixel with a relative unit when we get there. Does SP work in directly in Chrome? Oh well. I don't do that much CSS, so when it comes to doing designs in relative font sizes, I kind of suffer a lot because I don't do that maths often. But you do know that buttons are text transform capitalize. We do know they're all caps. So we can do that with CSS. Yay, we don't have to change any button text. That didn't work! Yes, I think it's uppercase is what I wanted, not capitalize. Good to know you can do capitalize with CSS. Anyway, okay, now this is zoomed at 100%, so the buttons are a normal size, what they're supposed to be, but there's not enough white space around them, and there's not enough white space around each item here, and this burning baskets thing is getting kind of annoying because it keeps on pushing that down. Anyway, so the buttons have the right font size, relatively speaking. They have the right foreground and background color. I don't think they have the right padding around them, according to this. So margin, there was a thing of white space around here, but I don't think it spoke to buttons. So I may need to look at that. Maybe components, buttons. Maybe this will describe the padding to me. Button types. So I don't want to do a flat button, I want to do a raised button. But I don't know. I don't know what the margin should be. Internal padding and external padding is the same. Okay, so minimum width of 64 density independent pixels wide. Again, I will use just straight up pixels because I don't want to worry about that stuff. So min width 64 pixels. Just bear in mind that's not actually supposed to be absolute pixels, that's supposed to be relative size. Margin is, I say again, 8 pixels even though it's DIP, and padding is 8 pixels. What is the height of this? 48, okay. So I'll set the height again, pixels, even though it's not supposed to be that, and border box, what? Border box? CSS border box. I don't want the padding to be added to the width. Box sizing, that's what I wanted. Box sizing, border box. Okay. I don't want the padding to increase this width beyond 64. I want it to be 64 including a padding of 8 pixels at minimum. So you use border box for that because then it doesn't make it 64 plus 8 plus 8. Unfortunately, it seems to have done weird stuff with padding here. So we didn't actually want, we wanted these things ignored. We don't want vertical margin and padding on this right now. We just want the horizontal stuff. That still doesn't seem to have done the trick though. Because I have some padding here, but the height is really weird. Height, line height, 48 pixels. Maybe that's the trick. No, doesn't seem to have done what I want. What other options are in box sizing? Let's try padding box. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Box sizing, content box. Just experimenting with these to see if I get a better result. And that doesn't seem to have done it either. Okay, so I think border box is what I want, but for some reason this isn't working. This whole 48 thing, it isn't working. What am I doing wrong here? Assuming this font size is is this relative size of 14, 48 actually seems like a really... Oh, wait, I think that's the whole thing. This is only supposed to be 36. 36, which means the margin, the whole touch target needs to be... Oh, I see what's going on. Okay, so it's only supposed to look like it is 36 density independent pixels high, but the touch target, the whole tappable area should be 48. So at the moment I have no way to implement that, because I'm just doing simple components for the moment. But this looks a little bit better. So there's a minimum width, and then this is a slightly larger version of that. Now let's go to typography, because I want to create these things as cards. Let's see, style, typography, that is actually what I wanted. But, it's going to reload. What I want to do is I want to use a title value for this. For each page, I just want to use a title value. So I'll do something like, here, I want the page class. If I'm even applying that class, I'm not sure. But here I'll do font size 20 pixels. Also, what I probably want to do is make sure that this button is using the medium style. So how will I do that? Font size, normal, 374, regular, light, bold, condensed. Regular, regular seems slightly thinner than medium. So if regular is 400, medium is probably like 500. I'm going to do bold because bold seems... I don't know. I'll just leave it as regular. That's fine. I'll just leave it as regular. Okay. Also, there is things for the... I think this is in colors actually. Style, color. There are guidelines for the opacity of text color. So it's not just opacity 0. It is, when you look at your text, your primary text, this is with white text. With darker text, your primary opacity is 87%. So we'll probably do something like color is RGBA 000.87 to set the font size to the font color to 0.87 opacity, and then back in the button, because this will now inherit some font color opacity, we'll do 255, 255, 255, 1, because that is the opacity for light text. So the buttons should look solid white now in the font, and this should be at 0.87 opacity. Okay, so there's that. Now, what else can we do in the time that we have left? Lists. Let's try and do some list styling. That seems cool. Okay. I actually have to read through this because I haven't read through this, and I'm probably going to make some kind of stupid judgment about how this thing is supposed to look. But I think this looks a little bit nicer. I mean, given some separation here, this will probably look a little bit nicer. But I already think it looks slightly better than what it did before, which is quite encouraging. And I don't really want to do much more right now. I'm actually just having a lot of fun discovering this stuff. One thing I did want to point out, and I don't think I've done this a lot on stream before, is that when I described what React components were really good for in terms of encapsulating behavior and appearance and markup of an individual piece of the UI, one of the extensions of that is that sometimes it's good not to style in style sheets, which kind of have a global scope and are messy in terms of how styles are inherited, but to actually go into a component and style it in line, which sounds like heresy if you've if you've been doing web dev for any amount of time. It sounds pretty weird to style it in here, but let's have a look at an example of doing something like this. So say we wanted to create that margin inline here. We could say something like styles is an object, and we just give it some margin of maybe 10 pixels and nothing on the left and the right, because we're not really interested with that. What we can do is we can say styles is a JavaScript value, and here we'll say styles, because we've defined an object up here. So we put that in round brackets or round braces, and now it should apply this to each list item, which it's not doing, which is funny, because it's just funny. Let me have a look if I can inspect this element. It's pretty weird. So the list item doesn't have that. Maybe it's style. Not styles, but style. Yes, okay, so that works. So these now have those dynamic values, those dynamic style values, because they're done inline. And that's interesting. That's super interesting. This was one of the things that, along with doing markup in JSX code, doing styles inline seems pretty weird to me, coming from like a long time of not doing styles inline in JavaScript stuff. But it seems like it could work. It seems like it could be an elegant approach, especially doing things like animation or dynamic style values. Doing them in line, you have to do it sometimes, and this is kind of an elegant way of doing that. So I just wanted to point that out as something that I haven't discussed before. I also want to commit the work that I've done tonight and push that up. So if you want to get to this stuff, you can go to assertchris, github.com/assertchris/react-cms. There's a link in chat. Also, if you want to go to the if you want to get the archive videos, especially when I update them to show the latest videos where I've done most of the ReactJS stuff, you can go to this channel. There's a link in chat as well. go to this channel. I've got a few playlists here. So Daily Code is where these episodes go. Sometimes I do open source during work, just in music, and that's in Silverstripe open source. Conference talks are here, random QA. Daily Code, this has episodes. So it's at the moment it's up to Daily Code 12, and this that I'm streaming now is Daily Code 18, so I'm like 6 episodes behind, but there's a lot of editing to do, so I'll do that in the next few days, hopefully, and catch up. But you can check out older versions, older shows here. You can also go to Twitch TV/assertchris. And presumably you're here if you're watching the stream, but there's also a way to see past broadcasts here. Let me just try and find it. I think if I click on this profile, yeah, so you can see past things. And this stores for like a week and a half's worth of streams, so you can watch there if it's not up on YouTube yet. Anyway, I'm kind of gonna go now. I've had a lot of fun just learning a little bit about material design and doing some cleanup on the ReactJS code. I'm not going to be here tomorrow because I have there's a meetup that I'm going to, so I'm not going to be, and I can't actually stream it because I haven't asked for permission to stream it. But I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to be back on Thursday night, so an hour ago in your time zone, I'll be here. Follow on Twitch if you want email notifications for when I go live. Or check out archives if you're bored. There's a lot of cool stuff there. Thank you for being here very much. Thank you for interacting in chat, and have a good night or day.